So a few days ago, I was browsing Reddit as usual, and I came across a post from a student studying AI and robotics. They asked a question that I think a lot of people are struggling with right now. And the question was, is it still honestly worth becoming a programmer in 2026? They said they enjoy it, but they are seeing how fast AI is improving, and they were not sure where all of this is going. What was interesting to me was not just the question itself, but the comments underneath it. Some people were saying absolutely not, don't do it, the profession is dying. And others were saying the field is still growing, just adapt. And then some people said they regret the choices they made and they are now working jobs they don't like while figuring out what to do next. I thought this thread was really worth talking about because I have been in this industry for several years now. I have worked across web development, data science, and data engineering, and I have my own honest perspective on this that I want to share with you. So let me start with the most common thing I see people say, which is that the job just isn't fun anymore. I actually think this is an important point that doesn't get talked about enough, because a lot of developers say what they loved was getting into that deep focused state while writing code. Everything was flowing and they were fully inside the problem, and they feel like AI tools have taken that experience away from them. Now, instead of writing code yourself, you are reviewing what the AI produces. And for some people, that shift has made the work feel less satisfying. Even if it is technically more efficient, it feels fundamentally different. And I understand that feeling completely. There is a real difference between building something yourself and supervising something else that was built. And for people who went into this career because they genuinely loved writing code, that change feels like a real loss. And I don't think it is wrong to acknowledge that honestly, because pretending everything is fine when the nature of the work has changed is not helpful to anyone. But I also want to be realistic about what this means for someone who is just starting out. Because if you are beginning in 2026 and trying to decide whether this is the right path, the question honestly has two very different answers. It really depends on what you are actually looking for. And I think being clear about that upfront will save you a lot of confusion. If you want a clear and predictable path where you learn a specific set of skills and get a junior job, I have to be honest with you, because that path is genuinely harder than it was 3 or 4 years ago. I am not going to pretend otherwise, because I have seen the job market up close, and I have spoken to people who are struggling to find entry-level positions. Companies are hiring fewer junior developers right now, and they are expecting much more from the people they do hire. But if you are someone who is curious about how systems work, and you want to understand not just how to write code, but how to design solutions, that is a very different story. If you want to know how data flows through a system and how to make good architectural decisions, and if you want to work effectively alongside AI tools rather than just using them blindly, then there are still very real opportunities in this field. Probably more than in most other industries right now. And I say that based on what I actually see happening around me. One comment in that Reddit thread stood out to me as an insightful comment, and it said that both things are true at the same time. Good developers will always be needed, and most coding jobs will change completely. And I think that is exactly right. The people who are going to struggle are not the ones who learned to code, but the ones who learned in a very narrow way and then stopped growing. I also want to address something that comes up constantly in these discussions, which is the idea that if AI can already do junior level work, then junior developers are in trouble. I think this is partially true, but it also misses something really important, because what AI tools are currently good at is producing code for well-defined and isolated tasks. Things where the problem is clear and the context is limited work well for AI, but what junior developers actually need to learn in those first few years is not just how to write code. It is how to understand what a business actually needs, and it is how to ask the right questions and communicate with non-technical people. It is how to read an existing codebase and understand what it is doing and why, and it is how to make decisions when things are uncertain and unclear. Those things are not something you learn by watching AI do the coding for you. And that distinction matters a lot when thinking about future. So in a way, the developers who will be valuable in 5 years are very specific people, and they are the ones who use the time when AI was handling routine work to go deeper on understanding. Not the ones who let AI handle everything and assume that was enough, because that assumption is going to be a very costly one over time. Now, the other thing that came up a lot in that thread was robotics. And the person asking the question was actually studying AI and robotics, which I thought was interesting. I think robotics is genuinely fascinating right now for a specific reason, and the reason is not just that robots will be everywhere. It is that robotics is one area where you cannot fully automate development using AI tools, because you are dealing with the physical world, with hardware, with sensors, with real-time systems that have to respond to unpredictable environments. That combination of software and physical systems is difficult in ways that current AI tools are not good at handling end-to-end. And I think that makes it a very interesting space to be in. And more broadly, anything that requires working with physical systems will stay difficult to automate for a long time, whether that is robotics, hardware engineering, embedded systems, or real infrastructure like data centers and networking. But I want to come back to the core question, which is whether it is worth starting from zero as a programmer in 2026 or 2027. And my honest answer is that it depends entirely on how you approach it. If you approach it as someone who wants to understand systems deeply and who is curious about how things work, then yes, absolutely, it is worth it. If you have that mindset, I think the industry is going to be more interesting over the next few years, not less, because there is more to understand and more to build than there has ever been before. But if you want a quick path to a stable and well-paying job with skills you can learn in a year or two and then stop, that path is harder now than it used to be. And I would encourage you to think carefully about whether there is another direction that actually suits what you are looking for. I'm not saying it is impossible, but the expectations have shifted significantly and it is better to go in with clear eyes. The last thing I want to say comes from my own experience working in this industry across different roles and different countries. And the skill that has helped me the most over the years is not knowing a specific language or a specific framework. It is the habit of being willing to learn whatever comes next, because everything I learned 5 years ago has changed significantly. What I will be working with 5 years from now will probably look quite different from today, and the people who are comfortable with that kind of continuous change and who find it interesting rather than threatening are the ones who keep finding good opportunities. And that seems to be true no matter what the job market looks like at any given moment, which I think is actually a reassuring thing to hold on to. If you found this video useful, please subscribe to the channel, because I talk regularly about what it is actually like working in tech. And I will see you in the next one.